Welcome. You have found yourself in the space of the Capricorn monthly gathering for the Energetic Brew. I'm excited that you're here. My name is Rochelle McFarland. I'm an energetic medicine woman here to help you awaken your whole being wellness, learning about the transits that are coming up in Capricorn season, as well as to be offering you a body practice to navigate those transits a little bit easier. And I am very excited to be here with my co-host. I'm sure he will unmute and share himself.
Hello, I am Zane McFarlane, Rochelle's firstborn son. We are a Pisces and Virgo rising, opposing each other on that axis. So we come from two different perspectives when it comes to the transits, energy medicine, and when we come to teach. So we bring the balance and help equal each other out.
Often he is the guardrails for me and puts me back on the track. And, that is just part about that feminine energy that Pisces can bring. It's like I say, I'm like spilt water, and he is the earth to help ground me and put me back into a space where, yeah, I can feel a little bit more aligned and not so chaotic and crazy. But, sometimes that's challenging. So, as we're here together every month, we want to provide you with little tidbits of digestible information about the astrology that's coming up and then the coming season. Tonight, we'll be focusing on Capricorn season. We'll be talking about Mars and Neptune, and then just sharing a little bit of the things that, if there's any questions that come up. So if you're watching this and you have questions, please feel free to email us at theenergeticbrew@gmail.com. And with that, the invitation to start off this gathering is to find a cozy place. And if you need to pause, that's okay, because we are here to help you advocate for yourself of self-responsibility so that you can navigate and self-regulate that nervous system that can sometimes get really affected by the cosmic dance that's above us. So with a big deep inhale through the nose and exhaling out the mouth, if that feels good. Letting the day wash away, feeling the sit bones nuzzling into your space, whether you're seated, laying down, standing, however you might be right now. Just allow a little space in between the shoulders, the jaw, lengthening the spine, and finding just a little bit of quiet calm, listening to the sound of my voice, allowing you just to sink into this fleshy body that is yours, embracing it with gratitude and connection. If a little bit of a touch or a hug feels good, giving yourself that room for feeling into what you need right now. This is going to be important during Capricorn season for us to really anchor into what are our needs. Not about being outward and looking for others to fulfill expectations, but to come within to fulfill the expectations from within ourselves. Deepening that breath and relaxing that body just a little bit more. During this time, giving yourself as much spaciousness as you need, finding that comfort within your own body, whether you need to prop yourself up or shake off the day. This is what you get to choose. Aligning ourselves energetically with the coming transits is really going to be about the breath. And then being that we are meeting in this portal time of this 12/12, the 12th day of the 12th month, allowing the energy to come in through the nose and exhaling through the nose at your own pace. And we're calling in the elements to come in to help us. to get the most out of this time together. And pondering in with each breath, leaning into this 5 energy day. No matter when you're listening to this 5 energy day is laced in to this meditation and energetic medicine practice, giving ourselves permission to feel free to open and close the mouth if it feels good, dropping the chin down. And if a little yawn comes, that is welcome too. Inhaling and exhaling. And this inhaling and exhaling is honoring this full moon that is coming up on Sunday, giving us full capacity in the lungs and out of the lungs. Maybe your hands go to your belly, just to feel the movement of your body and becoming really present in this moment, letting the mind chatter slow down, maybe even clear the mind in your own way, emptying it out. With each inhale and each exhale, letting yourself appreciate your capacity to breathe. Noticing what might come up, noticing the pace of your inhale and your exhale. And again, relaxing those shoulders down and those arms down. Creating a small little intention for yourself of what needs to be released and let go of. What can be exhaled out that no longer serves you. Making that space on the next inhale, bringing in what is for you. During Capricorn season, this is going to be really important to slow down like we are right now in this moment. Giving ourselves full permission to have this sovereign connection to our own breath, our own being, and our own body. As you're breathing, I'm going to invite you to bring your hands, whether your eyes are open or closed. This is your choice, your journey. You get to choose. Bringing those hands up to the ears, and then just giving a slight little pull of that cartilage, that soft fold of the side of the ears, the edge of the ears, finding your thumb in front and your fingertips in behind that part of the ear. You might feel it down to your earlobe. And then back up again to the ridge, to the top of the ear, just wherever that might feel good for you. Again, noticing the jaw, releasing it and relaxing it. Pulling the flesh of the ear back towards the back of the head, using this firm pressure that you can handle. Pulling the ears up towards the top of the head. And maybe if you feel comfortable, bringing the chin down towards the chest. And then slowly bringing it back up and the chin coming up, going skyward or wallward, depending on how you might be sitting or laying down. And when it feels good, you can give your head a little bit of a turn to the right and allowing that flesh of the ear to be pulled just a little bit more as you again turn your head gently to the left. And then again, coming down to center point. This is a practice that you can use throughout Capricorn season to reduce overwhelm, to allow the tuning in of the good energy that is meant for you. Taking another inhale here and an exhale. Giving your toes a little bit of a wiggle. And those of you that have your eyes closed and are unfamiliar with our lung meridian, you can see on the screen that it will be popped up here in just a moment. Again, part of this practice and honoring this full moon going into Capricorn season, we're just wanting to do a little bit of a release so that we can be really realigned. We have so much retrograde energy happening right now that many clients have been telling us how tired they've been. And so I've chosen this lung meridian and affirmation for honoring this full moon that is coming up. And before we start into new material for the Capricorn season, I was really guided to bring attention to honoring how this Gemini full moon that will be happening on Sunday has a lot to do with letting go, releasing, having a connection with the nervous system. So you might, if you are already familiar with the lung meridian, then you can go ahead and start tracing it. For those of you that are not familiar with it, you might want to take a look at the screen. And I am going to make sure that you can see in this color here where it starts. Just as it says, it starts in the armpit and it goes down the arm and ends out at the thumb. And at your own pace, what I'd like you to recognize is, which arm did you start with? And there's not a lot of having to put a lot of meaning or to analyze it, but just notice if you started with your left, the focus is now creation. If you focused on more starting on the right, this is more about having some structure. So again, just noticing the choices without a lot of overanalyzing or criticizing, but just noticing. We're going to do this just another time, each side. When you're tracing or massaging the meridian, it's about allowing the time that you need to honor and become present with the body. Again, this is about becoming into this meditation space, being able to feel into your body, becoming present with it. And then now just clasping your arms as if you're crossing your arms, touching right on the inside of the arm, like where the arm elbow is, just touching in this side. Again, both sides. This is just going to help to activate the skin because during Capricorn season, there's a lot of activation with the skin, the knees, the teeth, and this will be a way to really give yourself a little bit of self-love. Energetically, this point can help us to activate the skin. So just pulsing it, light touch, noticing how that feels in your body with the intention of whole being wellness being a part of our experience. Inhaling and exhaling. Tracing that line one more time and notice if anything feels different. You're going to hear me yawn. And giving yourself a little wiggle if that feels good. And I'm feeling a lot calmer now. I'm going to pause this piece, check in with those of you that are live here with us so that there's just a little bit of community time. We'll be back to talk about Mars and Neptune. So make sure that you have grabbed your chart so you can see what houses are being activated in your chart. And again, if you have any questions, please email them to theenergeticbrew@gmail.com. So we're going to be right back. So I just wanted to share why I chose the lung meridian. Gemini is about the lungs, it's about the nervous system, and we will be having that full moon before we start Capricorn season. So being able to empty out anything that is no longer serving and the capacity of being able to release and let go through the breath. Breath is about our vitality, the quality of our breath is where everything starts and ends. Would you say, Zane?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because breath is the key part of living, one of the many key parts. So having that proper inhale and exhale to intake the best oxygen we can and releasing all the toxins that come from our breath is important.
Thank you. So when it comes to this Gemini full moon that'll be happening on Sunday, being able to empty out and release and let go, and then also using this practice throughout the Capricorn season, because there's a lot of things happening where we might not be honoring the breath enough and our sovereignty and our spiritual practices enough. We can get complicated with big, huge practices and thinking that there are so many steps we have to follow in order to get enough out of our practices. And I wanted to really draw the simplicity back to the breath, back to the capacity that a spiritual practice can be as simple as inhaling and exhaling with intention. Often, when we're working with our students and our clients, we play a game with them about how many breaths they take in a 60-second period. And so using our lung meridian, we can start to increase our lung capacity with intention when we're tracing it. We can also start to be removing blockages that are energetically in the lung meridian energy. So not necessarily physically to the lungs, but it is to the energy of the lungs. So again, that's from the armpit and down to the thumb. There are so many breath practices. One that I want to bring forward is some ionic breathing. And that's where you simply are plugging one nostril, inhaling in, holding, and then exhaling out the opposite nostril, inhaling again, exhaling out the opposite nostril. And so by giving ourselves this connection to the breath and taking control of what's happening within our body, this can really start to help us navigate those transits so that it can feel a little bit bumpy and a little bit rocky. So during Capricorn season, we really had noticed when we were looking at the transits two planets that we really wanted to take a point to look at where they are in your chart, for you to look at where they're in your chart, and to be able to have a conversation about them. So before we look at charts, in the live section where we pause this recording and do it with those that are here live with us in Zoom, we were wanting to talk about it. And then I also know that Zane, you have a chart ready to pull up for the 21st. We won't get to it right this moment, but what were the two planets that we were talking about that we pulled forward, Zane?
We wanted to talk about Mars and Neptune, as these two, one just finished a long retrograde, being Neptune, and the other one just entered its retrograde, being Mars. And so these retrogrades, Neptune's almost is basically going to give us a lasting retrograde feeling for almost over a year, right? And Mars, its retrograde is almost half a year kind of feel. And so there's that piece of the retrograde might be tiny, of maybe a month or two, depending on the planet. But there's this exhaust field that happens. And so we can feel it afterwards. And so we wanted to bring this up in class on how these exhaust fields might be playing their effect during Capricorn season. And then taking a look at the chart and how it might affect our natal chart.
So Neptune is a lot slower moving in our chart compared to what Mars is. Mars gets around the whole wheel of the zodiac in 2 years, Whereas Neptune, it is definitely a lot longer than 2 years. There is 165 years. So if you think about these two cycles within cycles, we're looking at a 2 year span and 165-year span. And so there is this real part that needs to be looked at, as Zane mentioned, that there's a lot of hype around retrograde season. And then there's the shadow degrees, meaning that where the degrees have been reviewed and revisited, and that they'll go over it yet again. So back on July 2nd is when Neptune started to go into its retrograde pattern. It went from 29 degrees back to 27 degrees, and that's where it is right now. And so now it's going to continue to go back over those degrees yet still. So this is the shadow effect. This is where there's this residual piece, as Zane was talking about it, like exhaust fumes, like an auric field, a little further away out from the body. Sometimes I think about this as like when like you can feel somebody coming, but you're not looking. That's kind of what the shadow kind of feels like. Would you agree with that, Zane?
Yeah, where it's there, but it's not there
Yeah,
at the same
exactly. But
time.
you can still feel it. So Neptune is this higher octave of love. Some say it's like a masculine version of Venus. It's about spiritual awakening, cosmic love, and the essence of the one love. There's this real deep connection. The low side of it is also illusions, toxicity, being not really clear in what's happening. Maybe you're feeling like it's in a haze in a way. There's some connections to not really feeling clear. So there's a lot that's happening in the collective. There's a lot that's happened in the news. This isn't an encouragement to go watch the news, but Neptune in this cycle right now is really going to be helping us to understand our spiritual connection and to allow ourselves to have the choice to say yes to what feels good versus what doesn't feel good. Is there something that you want to add to that part before we move over to Mars thing?
Mm, no, not immediately. There's just that piece of later on of how we're gonna dive deeper into the Neptune piece that I can just think of.
Okay, perfect. So when you're talking about the generational planet piece and some of the places where Neptune has been,
Kind of, yeah.
okay, perfect. And then Mars is how we, what, Zane? Oh, you just muted.
Mars is how we take action. The warrior within, the will, ambition, initiative. It can also be our goals. The low side can be the high aggression or like kind of looking for the battle and wants to find conflict in everything.
So
And
depending on,
it's the
oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I was going to say, depending on where this is in your chart, you might notice some patterns within yourself on like when Mars is activating you in a way where, yeah, you might want to be feisty, or you might just be really ambitious and wanting to take action, having initiative, being that person who gets the job done.
Like I know personally for myself recently during this Mars retrograde, there's been that piece of it's moved into Cancer. When it was in Cancer, that's my 11th house, house of community. And that's when I started to take more action and be more taking the initiative in my community within that space. And then once it moved into Leo, I started to have more of the spiritual kind of thoughts, more deeper thoughts within self. But then it also just drove me to the point where I needed to increase the upkeep of cleanliness within my home life at the same time. as that's where my natal Mars is located.
Mm. And it's so important that they're, again, taking small pieces and being able to learn your chart and be able to work with it. Again, this is why we are only going to talk about 2 pieces in our little bit here and really keeping it digestible so that you can start to follow along. So if you don't have your chart yet, please reach out. If you don't know how to read it, please reach out. And for those of you that do have your charts, now is the time to get them out. I am noticing a lot when we start to understand our chart and when we start to have the aspects, getting to know them. Yeah, you start to notice patterns that you're like, why am I even doing this? And this was a big conversation that we had in preparing for this class is that, yeah, Zane was starting to do things and then it snowballed for him, which is really interesting. I am not going to deny my need for sleep. So if you see me yawning, yeah, my body is looking for more oxygen. So I invite you to breathe with me and to breathe into yourself. And yeah, Zane and I, we were up early. We had a huge capture the flag game with our students. That adrenaline just makes you peak and now drop very quickly. So part of Neptune that is really, really interesting to look at is that it's a generational planet. Where it's located is where you may have been challenged or want to challenge that area of your life. There is this cute little PDF that you can download from our website that gives you and walks you through each individual planet section of the meanings of them, but then also the houses. So for the sake of this evening and keeping things nice and small, if you're wanting more information, we are here for you. For those that are just learning and wanting a little bit of a tidbit, depending on where Neptune is, if it is in your first house, Zane, you just want to go through the couple of the words that we have for each of the houses.
We're quickly going through them. The first house is about the self. Second house is about resources. Third is communication. Fourth is our home. Fifth is creativity. The sixth house is our daily routines. Seventh house is relationships. Eighth house is merging with another. Ninth house is other people's resources, or no, sorry, long-term travel and deeper learning. 10th is our career. The 11th house is our community. And then 12th house is what is further beyond? What what is more what is there to learn still? Our
Mhm.
beliefs.
Yeah, the subconscious. Yeah. And what's interesting is when we look at Neptune, it's a generational planet, like I mentioned. And the last time that Neptune was in Aries was back in 1862 to 1875. This is when there was a lot of shifting of women being empowered. They were being empowered to vote. The first subway tunnel came about. The dollar bill was made. And unfortunately, humanity, land was always fought over, but there was a lot of indigenous lives taken at that time during that period and a lot of discord. And so when we're looking at this blend, Aries is about the self. And so Neptune coming into that area, there's this wanting of challenge of self. How do I find the self? Collectively speaking. Yeah, you might not have Neptune in Aries, but during this time, we're going to pull up that chart in just a moment and talk about a Capricorn season. First, I want to talk a little bit about Mars and how it has gone to its retrograde path now. And it is retrograded in Leo for the collective. So right now in the current transits, we have Mars going in a sense backwards through the sign of Leo. So Zane, we were talking just before we jumped on this call. There was a lot of people talking about being tired and you said something very profound about why that might be.
My perspective of it and understanding is Mars is that action piece. And with it being in Leo, there could be that feel of wanting to get the attention, that spotlight, showing up with pride. But then through doing that too much, there's the burnout. But the Mars retrograde isn't wanting us to stand out in our community immediately. It wants us to come look inwards, self-reflect, and stand out just to ourselves and how to put the spotlight on ourselves. So that sense of burnout and tiredness might be approaching this energy in the wrong way. And so now we're having the reverse effect that it could be giving us.
Mhm. Well, and often too, we can be overly commercialized into believing that we need to do things a certain way and that burnout is the sign of success. And so looking at this Mars retrograde, it is going to continue until the towards the end of February, actually right before your birthday is when it'll go direct. Again, we're still going to have those exhaust fumes for some time afterwards. So, really using Capricorn season for more of a resting period, an inner reflection of self. How can you go inwards and take action than to be so outward and take action? And then coming back to Neptune during Capricorn season, Neptune is going to be actually helping us to get further into what is for us. So I think we've come to that part. Unless you're wanting to add something different, let's pop up that collective chart before we spend some time with our community and look at their charts and have a conversation with them.
For sure. Those
Mhm.
those that don't know when my birthday is, since that was mentioned, that is February 26th. So that's slightly before February 26th, Mars goes direct.
Yeah, Mars goes direct on the 24th, so February the 24th. Oh, nice. You brought up this chart. Okay, great. So part of this is what we're wanting to draw some attention onto. You'll notice that the date here and the space that we are looking at this. So ignore the clock face if you are not living in Kelowna, but just look at to where the aspects are landing. And what did I mean by the clock facing?
The clock face?
Yeah, that might be a term I didn't use with you before, meaning that Aries is in the first house. So it might not be all set up in the same way. This is just going to be from in the area of Kelowna. Okay.
Specifically, the chart is pulled for 12 in the afternoon. So exactly high noon, December 21st, 2024, for Kelowna, BC, Canada.
Yeah. And what we're looking at again is Mars. And we're also looking at Neptune. These two planets here and how they're activating this chart is really about continuing the practices of supporting the subconscious, supporting the connection to our belief systems, our karma, the hiddenness, and the sun is almost squaring this. And so now there's going to be some hard lessons about what are our practices? How do we want to challenge our subconscious? Or the opposite, how is our subconscious challenging us? You want to add anything to that, Zane?
Hmm, not at the moment. That's calling to me right now.
Mm-hmm. So during Capricorn season, again, using that 4 weeks of time to heighten your practices, getting yourself into what is it that I really believe and what is hidden within my subconscious, asking for connection to the self, asking for connection to what brings me joy, what actually vibrationally feels good in the body. We can be so disconnected. And this is again about Neptune. Neptune can be showing us the way to the higher sense of love, but also can be giving us the connection to being a little bit on the slippery slope for addiction, a little bit of the slippery slope for attitudes and behaviors that are not so helpful. So really allowing ourselves this space during Capricorn season to get into practices that are going to serve us and to surround ourselves with people who are going to help to hold us accountable. And so taking a stock of an inventory of, though there's a saying of who we hang around is who we become most like. So noticing habits is going to be really important during Capricorn season. When we look at how the sun will be activating Mars, now the sun moves a degree each day. So throughout Capricorn season, there's going to be a little bit of play from the sun and Mars, since they kind of move a little bit quicker than what Neptune does. There is going to, again, there will be the retrograde action happening where it's going to be going, it would go back into Cancer throughout that period of time. So looking at this part of what am I doing on when it comes to creation? How am I creating? What am I passionate about? And coming back into an inwards space, not so much of an outward space. Slowing down. Maybe we have too many projects on the go. During Capricorn season, it's a great time for us collectively to be creating, but maybe not the whole list. Maybe it's just finding and muscle testing a priority list, letting ourselves find ways through the list of the things that we want to create or through the passions that we have. And maybe it's the house of children. So, asking the children to start to prioritize what is really important to them rather than doing all of the list and burning themselves out. Zane, is there something you want to add to this part?
Yeah, once again, it's that piece of keeping it to that Mercury, Mars, and Sun kind of location. You've covered it.
And then the practice that I was talking about, why it's super, super important, is there is this connection that Neptune is making to the south node, or pardon me, to the north node. So where we want to head, what do we want to do? I did say we would stay to Neptune and Mars, but there is a connection that Neptune is making to the life lessons, to the capacity of what we are here to learn and to stop the people pleasing. And this is this line right here. So noticing, what have I been doing in the past to fit in? What have I done to just get along with others? Now, it's not about going and creating havoc in our relationships, but it's about actually asking ourselves fully and honestly, does this relationship nurture me? Or does it navigate me into a way that is detrimental to me, that is not serving? So if there have been recent breakups and disconnections happening in your relationships, this isn't to be blamed on it because we don't believe in blaming it. That is our perspective. It's not about blaming the stars and saying, oh, it's because of this that's happening. Well, it's actually, how did I not work with that energy? Or how did that energy actually help me to make these decisions? So taking some time to really understand, what are my spiritual practices? What is it that I want to do when it comes to my spiritual practices? And are the past ones just doing it because somebody else is doing it? And yeah, I think I've kind of feel complete on there. I don't want to repeat myself, but it kind of gets me a little bit excited just to see what has been happening and how there's a lot of astrologers that are talking about timelines, and this is really the time to not invest in toxic positivity. It's like, oh, everything's going to be okay, let's move on. No, it's what is it that I actually really need to do to feel that I can be positive without living in a illusion. Cool. Perfect. So that, I think, is like in a quick nutshell of what to be watching for during Capricorn season. Find practices that you can lean into. Maybe it's the body practice that we did earlier, where it's tracing the lung meridian, noticing the breath, activating the skin by using that little crease in the elbow, pulsing it, and then coming back to the breath and breathing in what is good for me and exhaling what is no longer for me. Yeah. Learning to pause and saying, is there anything else you want to say about that, Zane?
No. I'm like, yeah, you covered it on that piece of making sure that we're not living in that illusion, and maybe we were caught up in that dreamy state. And with Neptune coming out of its retrograde, there might be that piece of people waking up from a dreamy state. Again, though, for those that were maybe in a longer term relationship or something came out of nowhere, may have not have had anything to do with Neptune. There may have been another aspect that kind of activated your natal Neptune. So within just the last year, call it, that there's been a sudden change or a wake up to an illusion or a dream state that then doesn't suit you anymore. That might be the Neptune retrograde going direct now.
Yeah. And there are so many different aspects to when it comes to relationships and to connections. So take a look at your chart. Notice where Neptune and Mars are in your chart. Ask us questions. Again, send us an email to theenergeticbrew@gmail.com if you're wanting to dive deeper into your chart. And with that, I believe we are coming closer to the time of us wrapping up our live call. We're going to close off this part of our recording. Know that you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Energetic Brew. And we post every week a meridian that goes with the transits each week. Why do we do that? It's because the cycles within the cycles are constantly moving. Yes, we can have one practice for the whole entire season because that is the intention. And we can also set in the intention of week by week, knowing how quick things can shift and change, knowing that every 2 to 2.5 days, the moon is shifting signs. Therefore, it's stirring up the emotions in a different way, the waters in our body, the connections. And so this is why we give you a weekly practice. So if you're not following us already, please do that. Connect with us. And we really appreciate you being here with us and connecting with us. This is the part where we're going to go and play with charts with those that are here live on Zoom. Do watch. We have our 2025 schedule coming out, and we will continue on serving the community with free connection gatherings like this. Thank you again, and I'll hand it over to Zane to close this piece off.
I just want to say thank you for all of those that came live and those that are here on the recording and the replay and spending your time here listening to us, learning how to work with the energies and your energetic brew chart. So thank you for joining us tonight, and we will see you in 2025.
Yes. Be safe, be well, and make sure that you are making choices that make you feel good, that awaken your whole being wellness. Yes. See you in 2025.